Okay, students, today we are going to do some examples of two-step equations. Let's start with number 1 here, where we have 3x minus 7 equals 14. Now, when you have two-step equations, the big key is working in reverse to what order of operations is. Whereas we would have normally looked at multiplication first and then subtraction, the goal is to get x by itself. And that means all these numbers on this side of the equal sign must move to the other side. In order to do that, we have to do the inverse of what you see, or the opposite. So the opposite of minus 7 is plus 7, and we're going to do a plus 7 to both sides. These cancel out, bring down 3x equals, and 14 plus 7 is 21. Then you're going to do division because 3 is being multiplied by x, and that's the opposite. So fraction bar to both sides, divide by 3, cancel these out because 3 divided 3 is just x. Bring down your x equals, and 21 divide 3 equals 7. And that's how you do number 1. Now let's look at number 2. The opposite of addition is subtraction, and then we will have the opposite of division, which is multiplication. Now let's look at this way. How I work it out is usually whatever is farther away from the variable is also what you do first, and you work your way to the variable and the number closest to it. That's another way to remember it. Okay? So we're going to subtract 6 first to both sides. Cancel out, bring down n, divide 2 equals negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. Now here's where some people forget that the opposite of divide is multiply, and if you put the 2 on top of this fraction bar, these cancel out, and then you bring down n equals, and over here you multiply by 2, and negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. Okay, now let's look at the next one. We have it written on the other side just to give you a different look. Now when you have a fraction bar and you have more than one thing being computed on top or bottom, it's almost as if this has parentheses around it, or it's just understood. Okay? Now we're going to have to work backwards here because you've got to get rid of the fractions first, which means I'm going to do the opposite of divide 6, which is multiply 6. So I'm going to put 6 at the top of this fraction over here so that I can cancel these out. And I'm going to put a big fat dot for times here and 6 over here. So that means 6 times negative 1 is negative 6 equals, and then the 6 divided 6 leaves you with 4 plus x over 1, or just 4 plus x. Now we have a one-step equation, and the opposite of adding 4 is subtract 4 to both sides. Okay, and this cancels out, and bring down x and the equals, and negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10. Now let's look at this one over here. We're going to do the distributive property. So this is actually more of a 3-step equation than a 2-step. But let's start with the distributive property. 5 times n is 5n. Bring down your plus. And 5 times 5 is 25. And that all equals 50. Now you have your 2-step equation, and so we'll subtract 25 from both sides. That's what you have to do next. Cancels out. Bring down 5n equals 50 minus 25 is 25. And then we have a fraction bar that we're going to do to both sides because we're going to divide both sides by 5. These slash through and cancel out, bring down n equals, and 25 divided 5 is 5. Alright, now we have 2 more problems. The first one is 1/2 x minus 6 equals 14. Okay? Now on this one, we want to get rid of the 6 first, and then we'll worry about what's being multiplied to x. And the opposite of subtract 6 is add 6 to both sides. And these cancel out, and you bring down 1/2 x. Make the x big enough so the x isn't on the bottom with the 2. And that equals 20. And then opposite of 1/2 is the reciprocal times 2 to both sides. And so 2 times 1/2 gives you just 1x, or x. And then 20 times 2 is 40. And the last one, now here's a clever little trick. So watch this. I have a fraction on the outside. You can do one of 2 things. First, we could do distributive property, and then I'm going to show another cool trick, okay? So the distributive property would be what's 1/3 times 15x, and 1/3 of 15 is 5x. Bring down my subtraction sign. And 1/3 of 3 is just 1. And that equals 11. Okay? So we're going to add 1 to both sides. Add 1 to both sides. Cancels out. Bring down 5x equals 12. And now I like this one because you end up with a fraction answer. Or you can end up with a decimal answer, but since you started with a fraction, we'll end with a fraction. So we're going to divide 5 from both sides. Cancel out. And x equals 12 divided 5. Well, 5 goes into 12 2 times, because 5 times 2 is 10, with 2 left over, so 2 2/5. Now I want to show you another cool trick with this exact same problem, and then we're done with notes, okay? Let me just rewrite this same problem here again, just to get an idea. I have 1/3 times a quantity of 15x minus 3 equals 11 again. So what we can do is, since 1/3 is being multiplied by everything in here, we could get rid of that first. And since it's being multiplied and it's a fraction, we can multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. Okay? So that cancels out and becomes 1, or just 15x minus 3 equals, and 11 times 3 is 33. Then we add 3 to both sides. Okay? Plus 3, plus 3. Cancels out. Bring down 15x equals, and this is 36. And we divide both sides by 15. 15 here, 15 here, and x equals, 15 goes into 36 2 times, with 6 left over for 15. But guys, that simplifies. I can divide 3 from the top and the bottom of 6/15. And so that simplifies to x equals 2, and 6 divided 3 is 2, and 15 divided 3 is 5. And you get the exact same answer here as we did up there.